Realtors will never tell you this, because if they do, you will either not buy real estate in Northern Cyprus, or you will buy something completely different from what they want to push on you and where they want to make a good profit. Over the past few years in Northern Cyprus, I have seen many situations where people lost tens of thousands of euros when buying real estate simply because they didn't know some basic, elementary, but very important rules. That's why in this video, I will tell you the 12 main rules that you absolutely need to know before buying real estate in Northern Cyprus in 2026. Most people here buy real estate as an investment in order to make money from it in one way or another. Therefore, most of the rules will specifically relate to investment properties. But among them, there will also be a few rules for those who are buying for permanent residence. Then let's start with the main rule. Before you buy real estate in Northern Cyprus, or anywhere else in the world for that matter, think about the purpose for which you are buying it. What is the goal of this purchase? Because if you just purchase a property without giving it much thought, just because you like it, or even worse, although I'm not sure which is worse, but let's say even worse, if you buy what a realtor or developer is trying to push on you, you might end up quite unhappy and dissatisfied with your purchase. You might be stuck with this purchase for a long time, unable to sell it, unable to make any profit from it, and you won't be happy living there. That's why you absolutely need to think about what you want. Do you want to live here? Okay. What do you want to do when you live in this place? Do you want your children to go to this particular school? Do you want, for example, to use this specific infrastructure? For example, is there a sports bar or a sports club, or is your company's office there, or maybe a partner business, or simply a spa where your wife will go? Once you've decided what you'll be doing in Northern Cyprus and where, then look for real estate specifically for living in that particular area. Because if you buy property that is rented out short-term by other people, I assure you, you will not be happy there. Well, unless you actually enjoy living in that kind of anthill, in an atmosphere like a hotel where new people arrive every few days and there are no permanent neighbors. And on the other hand, if you want to rent out this property, if you want to earn a good daily profit from it, you shouldn't buy in some residential district, because there won't be any resort infrastructure there, and you definitely won't make that kind of money there, or maybe you won't make any money at all. At best, you'll be able to rent it out long term. Therefore, the main first rule, both for investors and for those who plan to live permanently in Northern Cyprus, is to determine your purpose for buying. Be sure to save this video to your bookmarks right now, because it will help you save money, nerves, and literally years of your life. The second rule, never, under any circumstances, believe promises of high rental income. When someone tells you this apartment will pay for itself in 2 or 3 years, when they say you will get 10, 15% guaranteed annual returns, and some even claim 25, and by the way, this isn't just in our country. There are countries where they promise 12, 15, 20, sometimes even 25% annual rental income. Later, I spoke with our buyers who believed these promises and invested their money there. First of all, they never managed to get that money back, and it's unlikely they'll ever be able to. At best, they'll get out of it with losses. Secondly, they say outright, well, 2, maybe 3, at most 4% annual return is what you can realistically earn from this. But definitely not 12, 15, 20, or 25%. So if someone in Northern Cyprus or anywhere else offers you such huge rental returns, just don't believe it. Most likely, well, 99%, they're just trying to deceive you. Just put yourself in the developer's shoes. You're building apartments, you know you can earn 20% annual returns on them. What's the point of selling these apartments? It's easier to take out a low-interest loan from the bank, keep the apartments for yourself, rent them out, and keep earning 20% per year. That's an excellent profit. Banks will never offer that much, and neither will any business. Rental in Northern Cyprus does work. Everything is correct, everything is fair. Indeed, you can make money from this. But what is much more important for you in this matter? This is our next point, our next rule. Rule number 3. You need to have a signed guaranteed rental agreement or a management contract if it's a company. If this complex doesn't specifically offer guaranteed rentals, that's not a problem. The main thing is that behind this contract, behind these promises, there is a real functioning rental department. So you come to this company and they tell you, we want to sell you this apartment, you will earn good money from renting it out. You tell them, give me that. Just like Leverage Investments provides a rental income guarantee of 1,900 euros per month, the contract is signed for a minimum of 30 months. So you immediately understand that you are guaranteed to earn 57,000 euros here, guaranteed. For example, you go to another company and say, give it to me the way Leverage Investments does. They say, no, we don't do it that way. We don't know how to do that. We will simply manage it. In that case, you should definitely say, okay, let's go to your rental department. I want to see these professionals. You need to meet the rental manager. You need to meet the head of the department. Let them open the computer, open the occupancy spreadsheet for you, and show it to you. There's nothing scary or top secret about it if you glance at it for a few seconds. They'll scroll left and right there. You'll see what the previous occupancies were if you scroll left, and if you scroll right, what future occupancies there are, from which sources and at what prices. You'll just take a look, and in your mind, everything will add up as to how much their promises match reality. If they tell you, no, that's a trade secret, we won't show you anything, most likely they don't have anything at all, because this doesn't constitute a trade secret. Let them introduce you to the rental managers. Let them introduce you to the housekeeper, to the service managers. Let them show you how this business operates. You are investing quite a lot of money, so you have the right to know and see that these are not empty promises, that there is something real behind it. Rental property in Northern Cyprus brings in much more money than in Europe, the United States of America, or Dubai. But you also need to approach this matter correctly, approach it wisely, and work with reliable people. For example, our company has been professionally engaged in property rentals since 2008. So feel free to contact us. We have extensive experience and can show you how we work. If you like what you see, we can earn money together. My friends, in this same regard, if you are not investing but buying for yourself, be sure to check the work of the management company. For example, you are buying something in a building that is still under construction. They tell you there will be a garden city here, an oasis, landscaping, swimming pools, fountains. They can promise you anything at all. But this isn't the developer's first project, is it? It's not the first. You can say to them, okay, great, I like this apartment, I like this project. Let's go to your previous development and see what it looks like, how it's managed. If they are hiding this property from you, well, contact us. We'll take you there for free and show you. But be sure to take a look, because if that property is poorly managed or not managed at all, or if it's already overgrown with weeds and the empty pools have filled with rainwater, dirt, frogs and mosquitoes, and unfortunately, this does happen here in Northern Cyprus because many people don't want to deal with property management. It doesn't bring in much money in small complexes, but it brings a lot of complications, a lot of conflicts and a real headache, all over small amounts of money, over very minor sums. Accordingly, many developers simply don't do it. So if you see this kind of situation in the developer's previous complexes, if you notice that the building isn't being repaired, the complex isn't being maintained, landscaping isn't being done, you'll understand that most likely there's a 99% chance that the same thing will happen in the complex they're now actively offering you to buy. And then you can decide for yourself whether you want to live in such an unpleasant atmosphere or not. But even if you say, we don't care, we like it, we're ready to live even in the midst of trash, don't forget that when you end up living surrounded by garbage with broken windows, which will inevitably happen, and with an empty pool and abandoned grounds, the value of that property will drop significantly. We know of such examples, for instance, when a 3-bedroom apartment is sold for 20 or 30,000 British pounds sterling. You might say, well, that can't be, that's basically giving it away, that just doesn't happen. Well, maybe today it's a bit more expensive. I'm sharing information from 5 years ago, but still, even 5 years ago, it was impossible to build such an apartment for that kind of money. It cost that much simply because if we showed it to you, you would say, even if you gave it to me for free, with the condition that I have to live there, I wouldn't live there. Always check the management company, whether you're renting out the property or planning to live there permanently. My friends, this brings us to our next 4th point. Before you invest, or even just buy something for yourself or your family, always think about how you will eventually exit from it, even if you have no intention of selling. Real estate professionals, even when buying for themselves, always think not only about how to buy, but also about how they will eventually sell it, even if they have no plans to sell today. Question: why am I emphasizing this point? It seems like a contradiction. That's because there are some developers who will simply put obstacles in your way. Under no circumstances will they allow you to resell this property. I explained in great detail how the legislation works in our previous videos, but unfortunately, under certain conditions, you are completely dependent on the developer. And this situation applies to approximately 80% of the properties currently being offered in Northern Cyprus. In most of these properties, there are no problems at all. The rules of the game are very clear and simple, and we discuss them with the developer in advance. They are specified in your purchase agreement. There will be no surprises or problems. But there are some very well-known developers with excellent reputations, and there are others who are not so well-known and have a bad reputation, which as a newcomer you may not be aware of yet. There are developers who simply will never allow you to resell, and you will get stuck with this purchase, with this investment. If tomorrow you urgently need money for something, whether good or bad, you simply won't ever be able to get it out of this investment. Even if there are no problems with the developer, and even if there are no issues with the documents, though those also need to be checked, there are still more questions. Will you even be able to resell it? And is there any demand at all in this area? Because there are some decent properties, but they're in places where almost no one needs them. And as a newcomer, you arrive, you see it, you like everything, you buy it, and then you realize that no one else wants to live there for completely understandable, logical reasons. Accordingly, you won't be able to resell it. Or maybe the place is wonderful, just an excellent location. You really made the right choice. You bought it, you rented it out, or you lived there yourself. Everything was good, and then you decided you wanted to resell it. You need to consider what the competition is like, because if there are 20, 30, or even 50,000 properties built in that area, chances are you'll never be able to sell yours. Because there are areas where tens of thousands of properties have been built or are being built and will be completed in the coming years, and almost all of them, about 90% if not more, have been bought by investors. Not to live there, but to resell them later. So almost all of them will hit the market at the same time. And when there are tens of thousands of properties for sale on the market, the only option to sell such a quantity is to lower prices and sell for less than what people paid for them. In other words, to lose money on that investment. Unfortunately, we see such cases all the time. People come to us, we have the largest database of properties on the secondary market, and we often get such clients. Every day I sign up to a dozen contracts for the sale of secondary properties. Owners of secondary properties who once bought them elsewhere come to us. They say, we want to sell, and they offer us their properties at very low prices because there's no other way to sell them. And if they had bought through us back then, we would have advised them not to choose this area where there's huge competition and not much demand, but rather the area where competition is limited and demand is high. Because there, the infrastructure is already very well developed. There are beaches, there are already 2 yacht marinas, there is 1 hotel, and a second one with the casino is under construction. In other words, everything is already there for either vacationing or living. And everyone wants to buy there, but the number of properties is limited. We would have recommended that area to you, but you bought somewhere else. Now, in order to exit your investment in the other area, you have to sell for less than you paid. So be sure to pay attention to this. This is the most important point on our list. 5th point, always buy below market value. The main rule for investors is that we make money not when we sell, but when we buy. If a property costs 100,000, be sure to try, with our help we can arrange this for you, to buy it for 80 rather than buying it for 100 today in the hope that in 6 months or a year it will be worth 120 and you'll make a profit. It's better to buy for 80 today and sell for 100 in a year, even if it's just for 100. I'll make only 20,000, and if I'm lucky, maybe 30 or 40. Rather than buying for 100 today in the hope that the market will grow when it might not. Anything can happen in life and in the world. Pay attention to discounts, look at cashback offers, and consider guaranteed rental income. All of this lowers the price of your property. If today you bought for 80 something that's worth 100, and on top of that we got cashback, and we also received an additional discount or a gift like furniture, for example, plus at least a couple of years of guaranteed rental income. In the end, realistically, this property costs you 60, and in a couple of years, we can sell it for 120. There you have 100% profit. Give us a like if you also want to earn good money from real estate in Northern Cyprus. We have a significant number of such successful business cases. Perhaps it is not 100% of the time, but seeing 40, 42, 45, or even 65% and 50%, these are absolutely realistic and achievable profits for every single person who resells, especially for those who bought with us by following our proven strategic methods the right way. Simply because this takes into account that is, in reality, of course, properties are sold for more, for example, twice as much, but the price includes many additional expenses, which I mentioned in one of the previous points. And as a result, the investor ends up with less in hand. But I believe that even 40% over a couple of years of investment, that's 20% per year, is really very good. Because even in a bank, even in Northern Cyprus, we won't get more than 2%. In a Turkish bank, we won't get anything at all. We put $1 million there, and after a year, they gave us $1,040,000. And they even took from that 40, not $1,400,000, but $1,040,000. From $1 million, we got $40 in profit after a year, and they even took tax from that 40. That's why in other countries, in EU countries, the interest rates are very, very modest. And these 20% per year, I think, are simply a blessing. In business, you still have to work hard to earn that much, and not everyone will manage to earn it or even just not lose money. But here, it's practically guaranteed and very good. That's why I really like real estate as an investment. Point number 6. If you are buying as an investment, you shouldn't buy what you personally like, but rather what is in demand on the market. Buy something that you will be able to resell somewhere people want to live, where you yourself would want to live, and something that rents out well. It's very easy to check this. Contact an agency and ask, I'd like to rent a place in this complex and live there for 3 days or maybe for 6 months or a year. Show me what you can offer. If they offer you a list of properties, each one cheaper than the last, then you shouldn't buy there. But if, like in our case, we wanted to accommodate our guests and we had a very rainy week. It was the beginning of March and we wanted to accommodate our guests. I called the rental department and said, well, we have a certain number of properties there, but surely some of them are still vacant. They told me, no, every single one of them is occupied. Our guests realized that, yes, it really was just a coincidence. This truly is a place worth investing in. Even during a rainy winter, everything is still occupied, and unfortunately, we can't even accommodate our own guests there. But if someone offers a long list of inexpensive rental properties, you can see with your own eyes that you won't make any money there. Or regarding sales, we would like to buy there. Show us what you have for sale, and they have a price list that spans several pages. Imagine if your property gets added to that list as well. How will you compete with all of them? First, everyone else will sell, and only then will you be able to enter the market and get your money back. So check if it's in demand for living. Is it in demand for sale? Does it actually sell? Can it be rented out at good prices? If all 3 points match, then invest. If you just like it and don't pay attention to these things, you might fall into a trap and never get your money back or get back less than you invested. Point number 7, always work only through a legal entity registered in Northern Cyprus. If you are dealing with real estate, this entity must be a licensed real estate agency. No friends, acquaintances, or any illegal realtors. Maybe they'll do something for you cheaper or even for free. Maybe they're really nice people and have already treated you to free coffee or a glass of free beer, and you've already fallen for them. For serious matters, for investing your hard-earned money, money that wasn't earned easily, and to make sure you don't lose it, you need to work with a legal entity that is registered in Northern Cyprus and that holds a license to sell real estate in Northern Cyprus. Not just a certificate of membership in some public organization, but an actual license. Exactly what is required by law. And you must have a formal contract with this legal entity. And under this contract, the legal entity is also liable with its own assets for any possible mistakes in its work. Ideally, it should be like we do it, with every transaction insured for 400,000 euros. In other words, we also transfer our liability to an insurance company. This is a mandatory condition to ensure that you are insured and that you don't lose your money when investing in real estate in Northern Cyprus. 8th point, do you want to save money? I want to save money too, but it's not always appropriate. If the seller or developer, for example, tells you the transaction paperwork is free, my staff will handle everything, you don't have to pay anything, just sign here. That kind of saving is not what we need. You might save 1,000 or 1,500 euros now, but we all understand that there's an inherent conflict of interest. What is their interest? To sell their property to you as quickly and for as much money as possible. It doesn't matter whether you need it or not. Whether it matches, remember the first point on our list, your wishes and goals or not. Their goal is to sell and get your money. Your goal is completely different. To buy exactly what you need, something that perfectly matches your requirements and fully meets your expectations and aligns with your goal. Plus to save money well. Plus to get guarantees. In general, you always need your own independent specialist who can assess the market, advise you whether you are buying what you need or not, and who can conduct a legal check of the property. Because who knows, maybe this developer is involved in lawsuits, maybe there's a mortgage on this property and they haven't told you about it. And in some regions of Northern Cyprus, there are government bodies that don't even check this from the start. There are those who check very strictly, and there is a region where for some reason they don't check at all. It's unclear why. And here, you simply can't do without an independent assistant who is guaranteed to defend your interests, not the developers. That's why we don't try to save money on this. You have your own assistant who protects your interests, not the sellers. By the way, as a seller and developer myself, I often offer our buyers to handle all the paperwork for them. And when they say, no, we have our own lawyer, let her handle everything, I'm actually very glad about that. When it comes to this, I'm always on my buyer's side. Well, besides that, I also transfer the responsibility for all this paperwork over there and save my own time. I know that my documents are always in order, so the buyer will be doubly calm and satisfied when someone else handles the paperwork. And I personally write in the reservation form that whatever amount you agree upon, you will pay your lawyer for this, this, and this. And she or he will take care of everything there and check everything. Look, the process is as follows. A buyer comes to us, we find a property on the market. We are not the seller. The seller is either the developer or a private individual. But by law, We are responsible for the transaction in any case. The seller is also responsible for their part of the deal, but we are responsible for ours. This is what the insurance company covers, our professional liability. That's why, in this case, even though we select the properties, we act on behalf of the buyer. If the property turns out to have issues, I'd rather walk away from the deal. If the buyer insists saying, I want to buy a problematic property, I'll say, I'm not going to sell it. Buy it yourself without me. I'll simply write to them in writing that I'm withdrawing from this so that I won't be held responsible for it in the future, because the last thing I want is to sell some problematic property. The market is huge. There are plenty of properties. There's no need to sell problematic ones. Every property needs to be checked legally. It needs to be evaluated. And it's important to understand whether there are any risks for the buyer or for me. Because today's problems for the buyer could become my problems for many years to come. Lawsuits, a bad reputation, and loss of money. That's why whenever we offer properties from any seller on this market, we always act on the buyer's side. And besides that, even if you go to another agency and they find you a property, still don't be lazy, don't spare the money. It costs 500 British pounds, it's not expensive. Show us all the documents and we will provide you with a legal opinion on that property. Not long ago, after hearing this recommendation in one of our videos, some buyers came to us. They said, we want to buy this property and we'd like you to give us a legal assessment. We didn't even charge them any money. We just know this property very well. We told them, look, there's a problem here that can't be solved and it never will be. And the problem is so serious that it actually calls into question the buyer's ownership rights. This is a problem that has remained unresolved for 20 years and never will be resolved. And we know about this problem for sure because we were supposed to have a deal on this property recently and we ourselves, cancelled it. We gave up our earnings, but we saved our buyers money. We did all of this completely free of charge. We simply gave them a consultation and the people were very satisfied, very grateful to us. They said, thank you, you saved our deposit. We told them we didn't just save you a few thousand, we saved you the entire amount of the deal, because if you had bought it now, it never would have truly been yours. You would never have had proper electricity there, you would never have had the documents. And our legislation is changing for the better, becoming more European, more correct, more reliable, more structured. Who knows what will happen in 5 years? Maybe in 5 years they'll say that all these properties without documents need to be demolished or returned to their previous owners, or that today's owners will have to pay a lot of money to bring everything in line with the law. In general, this way we saved a large sum of money, several tens of thousands of euros, for these buyers who aren't even our clients. I hope they appreciated our level of professionalism and that one day when they decide to buy, they'll come to us and, with our help, purchase something good and reliable and be happy there. Point number 9, find out what it is before you buy. What is a certificate of ownership? What is a property title? And Northern Cyprus is a separate country, and here, I guarantee you, the process of registering ownership is not the same as in your country. So study what titles are. Learn about the procedure for transferring the certificate of ownership to your name. Study and be surprised that here you first need to get permission from the Council of Ministers in order for you as a foreigner to even be allowed to purchase property. Learn that if there is a military base nearby, you will not be allowed to buy. In general, there are a lot of issues which we have covered in great detail in a separate video. The link will be under this video in the pinned comment in the description. Be sure to watch it and pay special detailed attention to this topic. Next, point number 10. Be sure to study and take into account all additional expenses for processing and maintaining the deal. If you have 100,000 euros in your pocket and you are offered a property for 100,000 euros, if it's our company, then the additional expenses will be minimal. We almost always include everything in the price of the property. But if you are not buying from us, be prepared for the price of 100,000 euros to easily and inevitably turn into 125,000 euros. Because 5% is VAT, 9% is the title transfer tax, and 0.5% is the stamp duty. There are also fees for infrastructure, fees for submitting an application to the Council of Ministers, and utility connection fees. In general, there are quite a lot of expenses. Often you also have to pay the developer's expenses because this is a secondary transaction. And as a result, your expenses will be higher than you had planned. So be sure to take this into account. Next, the 11th point. Don't believe in easy money. Northern Cyprus and the real estate market of Northern Cyprus are not a get-rich button that will instantly shower you with money. Think about what you want, how much you want to earn, how you want to earn it, what your entry strategy is, what your exit strategy is, and who will be renting from you. In general, consider all these questions carefully, and you are guaranteed to make money from this. Real estate in Northern Cyprus is undervalued. It is the best real estate market in the world today, as long as prices haven't caught up with those in neighboring countries. My friends, the last 12th point, we've actually mentioned this several times in this video already, but I want to highlight it separately. Be sure to double check your seller or developer. Don't be swayed by a beautiful website, an expensive car, a fancy showroom, or their luxurious office. Look at how well they have built previous properties, whether they manage them or not, whether there are any conflicts with buyers, and whether they deliver projects on time or not. If your property is still under construction, check the quality of their previous projects. No matter what they promise you, even if they say the quality will be out of this world, look at how they built in previous years. If you see that their previous construction was poor, don't believe any promises. And in general, the main idea of today's video is that the biggest mistake buyers make is simply trusting. The right, sensible, and beneficial strategy is to verify. And that's what I wish for you. In general, I believe that these 12 points, these rules, will work absolutely anywhere in the world when buying real estate. But if you are specifically interested in real estate in Northern Cyprus, you are welcome to come to us. Our contact information is in the video description and in the pinned comment. We will be happy to be of help to you in every way.